Hey, it's Larson Home Inspection here. Got a nice day for an inspection. Got a 1925 Tudor style two-story house in Moorhead. It's friends of mine houses, they're selling it, and they wanted to do a little seller's inspection, so they allowed me to do a little video. So I just wanted to give a little quick walkthrough of a typical exterior inspection and how I go about my process. So first of all, I step back, pretty far from the building, get a good look at the wall, plumb and sight lines, roof and structure. Then we'll go up closer to the house. This is a really neat, unique house. It's this beautiful brick. It's a three-tone integral gravel and sand color in it. And if you can see, they used to put hay and straw and grass and whatever they could find, horsehair sometimes, into the block itself when they were casting it. And that it's three different colors of sand that they would press together and cast. So this house is in pretty good shape. I'll just kind of go through some things. So these are probably original gutters here, and you can see there's two diversions, one to go outside, and then they have a little diverter here where you can divert it inside to an old cistern, which would hold water where they could pump up and use for clothes washing and whatnot. So it's always good to cap off that pipe going into the house and cap off the cistern when it's not going to be in use anymore. So this block's in really good shape. There are some smaller cracks, and it's not super concerning yet, a crack like that. When they start to get tapered and bigger than a quarter of an inch, that can mean some settling and expansion contraction in a house. In an older house, window sills are always an issue, and I can see here that it looks good from the outside, but it is soft here. There's some decay. They probably went over with some putty and painted some of these areas. These are also usually soft spots around the house. I can tell that's soft there to look for. You want to always have caulking around any of these gaps around windows. But these full piece concrete sills and lintels are awesome. That's the way a brick house should be. They're really strong and they last a long time, and they don't let water in. So here we got another gutter that's going right into the old cistern into the house, so not the best placement. Just really cool Tudor style roof lines here, but you can see that gutter is really not doing a whole lot. They should be bigger 4-inch gutters. That water's gonna drift right off that plane and go right over the gutter. And then they got the old one capped here, and then this gutter is just diverting right onto the ground. So that always should be extended. It should be placed somewhere else or extended away from the house. It's a pretty low spot for a hose bib here. It's going to be covered with snow and hard to get your hose on there. It should be screwed to the house better. But really cool house. You can see more of the hay and grass that they used in there. All right, so I can see here up top, that would have been the old electrical mast for the power supply coming into the building. So I can see that they did a new power supply, new mast and conduit coming down here to the meter. So they probably updated the panel recently in the last 20 years. This box should be replaced there. Again, we got gutter issues. It'd probably be better to just replace all of these gutters on this house. They're undersized and not really doing what they're supposed to. Trees are always an issue around foundations, so I always recommend to cut down trees. And then this is an older style exterior outlet, so it should this should basically be replaced with a exterior proof with an exterior door on it to keep water and the elements out of there. And it should be a GFCI exterior box, so I can test it for polarity and test that it's hot, and it is hot right now, so that should be fixed. Any areas with wood exposed should be painted. Appraisers always are concerned with that for different loans, FHA and VA loans. They want to see any wood painted to get by the appraisal and get through the loan. So these are probably original windows with this glazing on here, and you know, the glazing's not bad in a lot of windows, but these should be re-glazed to keep water out of there and just for appearance wise. So here we got a gas meter. Now that tree should have been cut a long time ago. You can actually tell, looks like it's actually pushed the meter out. So this bracing is into the ground, and that should be bolted right here to the meter. It's actually the trees actually push the meter away from its bracing, so that should be corrected. I don't know if you can see way up there, we got a bunch of holes in the fascia and soffit from squirrels gnawing on there, so that should always be fixed. Alright, so I can tell here it's a high efficiency furnace. This would always be an intake and exhaust here, and I can tell that there's a little leak in the condensate on the pipe, so these probably aren't, yep, they're not glued. So these should be PVC glued, you know, solid, so they're not being, so you can't move them. So they're basically dripping condensation and forming some icicles there. Not a major deal, but all right, so AC unit. This is a Bryant, a fairly newer unit. One thing to always look for is if these fins are clean. So you can tell that dust and cottonwood seeds and debris in there, that should always be cleaned out, because it's dissipating heat from the coils, and the air needs to flow through there. So that should always be cleaned to make them work efficiently. You can tell a lot of things from nameplates on an AC unit. So serial number, they usually tell you a year of manufacture, and I know Bryant, it's the second 2 years, 2 numbers. So this was made in 06. Sometimes it's the first 2 numbers, sometimes you gotta look them up. This is a 2006 unit. In the product or the model numbers, if you look for a number with divisions of 12, it'll tell you how big the unit is. So 24 means it's a 2-ton. Anything 12 is basically 1 ton. So this is a 2-ton unit. And then I'll also look for minimum and maximum circuit amps and circuit breaker size. So this is also a common thing that electricians will put them on 30 amp breakers. That's your maximum over circuit device, because old AC units drew a lot more amps, so they needed bigger breakers, but the newer ones are on 20 or 25 typically. So always check that in the panel to make sure that it's the proper size breaker. Another common issue with AC units is the suction line. So this is basically a cold copper pipe that's bringing the cold refrigerant back into the AC unit. And this should always be insulated. These always get beat up with weed whackers and whatnot, so this should be insulated better. Dryer vents are always a typical problem. The damper doors usually are open, and there's always lint and whatnot in there. I don't know if we can get you inside here or not to look inside, but typically they're all full of lint, and it looks like they actually kind of smashed around the block to get access to the door. But there's no door on here, so that's letting a lot of air in, and can let your mice and rodents into the house too. So yeah, very cool old house. I just thought it was a unique property. It's also got these really unique shingles. It's like a dragon scale, and they're really thick. You'd think it's a slate tile. It's a asphalt bituminous, and it's probably got asbestos in it. But they're in really good condition, and they're very old. So just a unique house. Asbestos is always something to consider in an old house. They put it in plaster and ceiling tiles and floor tiles, a lot of different things. So something to be aware of. And then lead paint is also very commonly used on windows and interior paint in an old house. So just some things to look at, and just wanted to show you this cool old house.